Hey guys, welcome back. This is installment number 3 of our Triple Canyon module build. Uh, Again, available at Klawndykes.com. And our last episode, we installed the bridge without any track. And today's update is for track work. Now, what I've done is I went and let me explain something to you a little bit first before I get into all that. This module, each line on the module is 930 millimeters of track, which is you have the module itself is 928, and you have a millimeter overhang on both sides. That's standard how you would operate or build something like this. So what I did, and there's a multiple ways that you can get to that figure. I mean, if they ever made pieces that were 10 millimeters wide, you just put 93 of them together and you get 930, but obviously they don't. But I elected to go with a total of 10 pieces of the 186 millimeters. Now, the reason I did that is each side, okay, these short sides, they consist of 186 millimeters, and then the bridge itself only requires 3 additional pieces on each track, on each side. So I just went and bought 3 packs. Of course, now I have extra, but that's fine because I have another module, a single that I'm going to be putting together probably sometime in the summer. I'm not sure how soon, but within the next couple months. So what I did a combination of things. The track on the wings there, that's what I'm just going to call them as the wings. There are slots underneath, and we went over this, I don't know if it was the first video or the second, but I showed you on there that there are slots that are already pre-cut that you just have to take the machine screws and it will secure it down. It works and it doesn't. I mean, I might have the wrong size screws. I'm not sure. I went with something that I read somewhere, and they work for the most part, but they're not always the best. So I used, if I can find it. Here they are. Oh, pardon me for going off camera for a second. I have a couple of these from over here. These little alignment things, and I'll show you this once I take the track apart. But I have it put together here so that we can look at it, and I can demonstrate exactly what's going on here. Let me move up there a little bit. There we go. So anyway, I put the track down, and you have to get that alignment in there so that it will line up with your next modules and it'll be perfectly set. So I got them in there. The screws helped, but I also went and used just regular super glue. Okay. And so once those ends were aligned, the tracks in the middle, I would take a yardstick, okay, and I went along the edges of them and made sure that they were aligned, and where the joints are, on like these couple of joints that are on the bridge, plus the ones back here, just right underneath where the rail joiners go, I put a dab of super glue on there, and they're perfect. They don't go anywhere, so they'll be ready for finishing up later on with some extra ballast and stuff. But the other thing that I added, and you can see because it's lit up, are the block signals. Now, these are The whole thing comes from a company out of China called We Honest. That's WEHONEST. There you go. They do have a website. I'm not sure if you can order off of it. I've looked at it in the past, basically just to get reference of what they have product wise. But they advertise on there that they sell on Amazon, which I don't doubt. But majority of my stuff that I get from them, I buy off eBay. The prices are very good. Uh, a whole system, which is the signal, the detector, which is the little black thing, which I'll go over in a little bit, that's sticking up by the track, and the control module underneath won't even run you $30 um, at current prices. It's for that. I mean, that's dirt cheap, and it works. Now, they are not interlocking, and I'm not sure if you can even do that. But what these will do, and I'll just demonstrate this real quick with this one that's near me. Okay, so it's green. Here's the little device that I talked about. That's your little sensor. I push this in front of the sensor, and immediately it turns to red. Okay. Now I do have an issue with them because if you've got trains that are sometimes the darker colors, if they have a hard time with, and sometimes they may cycle through. So you got to watch, but generally speaking, they work very well. Okay, so that's red. It turns the signal red. Now I'm going to move past it. Okay, and it starts a timer. And I have my timers preset. So now it switched to yellow. And now it's going to switch over to green again. Okay. So if you've got obviously it's not moving at any kind of speed. But if you've got a layout and you're running these trains through at track speed, I don't know, 40, 50 mile an hour, whatever you normally run them at, that 8 seconds that I have programmed between each one is pretty good for a block, okay? So, that's 16 seconds you've got to get away from this. Your last car has to get away from this sensor. Now, there is another one on the other end, and it's a little difficult to see. Maybe if I can look at the other camera here. Let's try looking at the iPhone. Okay, so here's the overall picture. Maybe I can get a little bit closer. Let's try that one. Well, that doesn't really do a lot. Not really. Oh, no, that's not going to help either. Okay, so we'll go back to the different picture here and really play around with it this much this morning. Okay, so, but you can see there's another one on the other end, and I'm going to move that locomotive forward. So, you've got F8 back so we can turn. Okay, oops. All right, now the sound's off. Okay, so now you see it, and okay, so it just turned red, and the locomotive's coming past. Now, here's the thing. You got to angle these just right in N scale so that you don't trip the other one. And that was a little bit of a task. But I managed to get it. And let me shut this guy off. Okay, and you see it already cycled back through. So that's how those things work. Let me just switch back to the other. Where are you? Oh, that's the wrong thing. All right, here we try this one. Okay, so we'll go back to this one. So that's how those work. Now, doing the install, the hardest part on this is the installing of that sensor. These are designed, okay, now these They don't specifically say HO, but they are. Okay, he doesn't make a smaller one. Uh, these are primarily designed to go through the track, meaning like if you had normal Atlas track that had no roadbed to it, okay, and you all know what I'm talking about. You would cut like a couple of ties, and then scale probably like 3 or 4, and drill a hole up through the bottom, mount this thing up from underneath, and when it would roll over that sensor, then it would trip everything. I can't, I didn't want to try to do that because this Kato track, I got a little skittish, okay, because I don't want to ruin an expensive piece of track, okay, because I don't have a local hobby shop, and I don't want to be spending more money if I ruin a piece of track. So the easiest way for me to do this was to mount it from the outside. I can't shoot it straight across because once I do that, and I already had this happen because had it angled just a little bit off, it would trip whenever something would go down on the outside rail. Let's say it's the inside I'm working with. So if I went along the outside rail, it would trip it, and that's no good. So it's a matter of working with it, figuring out the right angle, and then I just went and took my hot glue gun, and there's three pretty heavy duty wires, and I just put the hot glue around it, held it in place for, I don't know, a minute, not even a minute, till it's set. Ran the test pieces back and forth, make sure the outside was tripping or not tripping, whatever, if I'm working with the outside, that the inside didn't trip, and vice versa. Once you get that, you're golden. So what we're going to do is we're going to pause the video, and we're going to go and disconnect all this so I can show you what the inner workings look like underneath. So let's see here. Just love this. Okay, so let's see. Okay, so we're going to come back right in a minute. So stick with. Okay, so here we are. We're back again. Now we're looking at the underside. Now we'll say one thing I forgot to mention earlier. I am drawing power for these from the track. Now with this, you can draw power 3 ways. Okay, you can, and this is the module here that I was talking about. That is your light, or your block signal controller. Okay. I don't have a little pointer here handy, do I? Probably not. Okay, well, we can use this. Okay, so right here, this little black box here, you can get power from, he has a little 5-volt AC adapter that he sells, I don't know, $5-6, something like that. So if, say you have a home layout and you don't want to mess with pulling track power, you can plug one of those into that. He has other different, like there's one that controls, let's say if you got a lot of these little street lamps or stuff like that. They make one like that, same thing. They have the wiring for the same thing. Now the one next to it here, okay, this is the one that I use for drawing track power, which is coming from here. And what I've done is, well, let me go one more thing. Or like if you have another module, like I do have another module on the other side, but it's too long a run, so I just use the track power for both sides, separate drops. But this one right here, these two actually, you could power 2 additional modules from that same one, from whatever source this is drawing from, whether it be from this one or from here. These will also it'll feed, daisy chain to two other ones, and you could just keep on going and going with that till you're done with whatever it is you're doing. Uh, but the track power, getting back to that part, I went and I took. Now you can pull. I put them away. Uh, the ends off of the connectors off of your Kato trak. Okay, and I usually I keep spares for mine, but they make this little device. Okay, and it comes with several different uh, things, but you can pull, get underneath these and just pull it straight off of your trak, and at that point, Kato makes a power drop. It's pre-wired, the blue and the white, and then you just hook it into the, take one of these off. You would just replace it with that power drop that they have. Um, but if you didn't want to do that, I went the more inexpensive way. And it's a little trickier. You can take these apart, okay? And like I said, it's kind of delicate work. But you would go and poke out with like a Phillips head screwdriver underneath here. It's a little hard to see, but you would go underneath on the bottom side of this, pop out the actual connector piece, the metal piece, flip that upside down, and carefully solder a piece of wire onto it. Feed that wire down through, push the whole thing back together, and then you could put it on your layout. Now I had to make 4 of those connectors, and they went fairly smooth, which was a big shock to me. But I got them. They all work. Now when I'm doing this, yes, I use black and red. Nobody cares because it's not going to a bus line. Okay, like if you take this to a train show and you're hooked into a club layout, there's no bus line to connect into. Those 2 wires are strictly for the getting power to that module. Okay, the controller. So the next thing, so that's the power. So the power comes in, and it's identical to on the other side. So and I went with the outside rail. And I'll tell you why I did that. Generally speaking, if you go to one of these shows, and this is designed for going to a show, except for obviously not having the bus line, you generally have the DCC on the outside rail, and the inside could be either DCC or a DC rail. I chose to go strictly with the outside rail because that's going to be consistent power. I don't know what it would happen if I would have went out inside rail with, say, with the inside signal, because if somebody is not running a train, then it's got no power. So we just went with do the outside rail. It'll work fine. You can see it works great. So that's the power. So right here is where the sensor comes down, and it goes in here. Now you can hook 2 different sensors up to these. And that's a good thing if you decide you want to use this for a railroad crossing, which you can do. I've done it already. You can activate a railroad crossing using the same setup. Right here in this little section here, this is set your delays. And we honest, I'm not sure when I got them if there was paperwork with them. I mean, this is I've had this for a while. I've cannibalized this off my HO layout for now. But on their website, there are detailed instructions on how to set these up. Um, but that's how you would set up your delays and such. I believe this part here goes for like if you're doing your crossing signals, and there's other things you can set up too. So this part up here, this is where the signal is. Okay, the actual signal for the block comes out of here, and you see it has a little uh, nut here holding it down. And I'm probably eventually gonna either put some super glue on that so that it stays tight, or maybe some hot glue. I'm not sure which yet. I am gonna finish securing all these wires down. I just put this together yesterday, so you forgive me for not having my wires tidied up a little bit yet, but that's coming probably today. And so what else we're going to do here? Okay, so there's other ways and other things you can program, but up here at the top is where your signals come in. The top is always going to be your black wire, which is the ground. Then it's going to now this is a 3-aspect signal. So the green is underneath. That's the second one. The yellow is in the middle here, and then the red is on the bottom. There's also a fourth one, and you forgive me if I can't remember what it was for. Um, Not sure. I think these are set up where you can do like a Pensy signal that has 7. Uh, but don't hold me to that. There are more expensive systems that are out there. Uh, I think Model Train Technologies is one of them, and their systems are not cheap. And they're more designed, honestly, for somebody who's got a home layout. Like my HO layout would probably be better suited for something like that than these are. But these work very well for what for going out on the road, and will do exactly what needs done. So with that, I think that's all we got really to show you. Um, Other than the fact that I wanted to show you this, if I can. So here's our, let's see if I got the right one. No, I don't. Okay. See, I've already labeled these left and right. Okay. So what this does is this is already cut out for your end of your module, and these are where your track goes in. So it's a very quick and easy alignment tool, and you'll be right on every time. Uh, Now, if you notice this, there's blue tape, blue painter's tape all over this, because that is our next phase that we're going to be doing, which will be scenery. And it's probably going to be at least 2 or 3 parts. I'm not sure. I don't want to make these super long. I'm already going on 25 minutes on this one already. And I wasn't going to do that. But I thought it was important. I wanted you guys to see how it actually works, how it all goes together. And it's very simple. Okay. The wiring for these, as you can see, is not hard. Your hardest part is going to be where you're getting your power from. If you're good with a soldering iron, you want to do it at home, you can do exactly like I did. If not, you just configure your track a little bit differently. Obviously, I had to drill. Let's see if I can put it down. Like right in here, there's underneath in this section and on the bridge, I had to drill in a hole and then modify it to cut it open a little bit wider so that the wiring can go through and come out the bottom. But once you do that, you're fine. And there's a close-up of the sensor. So you never see these, okay? When I do my scenery, I'm gonna be covering up. Now I can't cover obviously this part, but I'll camouflage most of this, and and I'll do the same thing on the other side, so you really won't see much of it, if at all. Somebody passing by is just going to see the signal. And I'm going to work, do some scenery up around in here too, just to cover up that base a little bit to blend it all together. Um, but that's basically what we're doing as far as that part goes. So my next phase of this project is going to be doing in this area. Okay, we're probably going to work some kind of thing down to these concrete structures. As you can see, I did some weathering on the bridge. I think I showed that in the last video, but probably not as good. Um, but I'm going to be coming down and working the hillside off the, into the canyon. Um, Doing something in here. I haven't decided if I want to make a dry creek bed or, you know, put some kind of river or something in there. I don't know, kicking around some ideas. If you have any suggestions, hey, drop them in there. I'm more than happy to listen to what people think, uh, good and bad. But aside from that, I think that's where we're going to wrap it up. So, like I said, like, share, subscribe, and tune in for the next video. Like I said, the next video we'll probably be doing something in here, and I'll be demonstrating some techniques for doing the actual scenery in this area, and then we'll move in the hopefully the what would be the last phase. We'll do the deck part, and we'll get those all worked in and work it together and see what we come up with. So, like I said, like, share, subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one. Y'all have a great day.